Hey everyone, welcome to Transformation Time. We're going to be having Sahas come on soon. He's going to talk to us about his personal development journey, so I think it'll be exciting to hear about his story. Who has lunch at 12 o'clock? Or who has late lunches at 1? Oh, here I see Sahas, so I'm just going to add him in. Just give me a minute. Uh, my phone is not working. Hold on, let's try this again. There we go. Okay, we're going live with Sahas. You should be coming on in a minute. Hey,
Hey, Diana, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, great. What's happening?
Oh, busy, but all good. What about you?
Same, busy, busy.
Yeah. So thanks so much for coming on. And so you're going to be sharing your personal development journey, which I think is exciting because last year I felt like you did a lot of moves. And so it'll be really exciting to hear your story.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored. And yeah, whatever you're doing, first of all, it's really, really amazing because I think it's providing a lot of value to the people who are listening to it from the stories of other people. And you're changing lives.
Oh, thanks so much. I think we're all in that, right? Everyone's here to just try to make a difference, right?
Yes.
So let's start with your so where are you right now in your
Uh,
in your real estate entrepreneur journey?
Diana, I would say that I'm always learning. I don't know where exactly I am in those levels, like in terms of I say that quite so often that nobody's really an expert and nobody can really become an expert. Because if I were an expert, then I would be God. And for me, we are just at different levels of learnings. So maybe you're at level five and I'm at level four. But there are people who are at level two and there are people at level one. For the peoples at level one, a level two is an expert, right? And so is for the people who are at level two, level four is an expert. So I really don't know where exactly I am. I'm somewhere there, but I'm somewhere there. But yeah, I'm always learning. And this is how I like to look at the life also that, there's so much of things to be created, things that really matter to be, you know, taken care of. And it is your responsibility to just, do the thing that you are supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. And for your business, you started a marketing business, right? Was that you started it last year or it just grew a lot last year? Or both, I guess, right?
So, so I came to Canada almost 1.5 years ago. So it's not really that I had enough time for me to establish my business or anything. But what I found was that in the first 6 months itself, I realized one very important factor that if I want to grow and if I want to compress time, I have to be the dumbest person in the smartest room. So that's why I made sure that I attended all the events which were happening all around. Uh, so, like, I'm in Toronto, so like anything which is happening in the GTA area. And that's how, in fact, I got into the mastermind also, where you and I also met. And yeah, so for me, it was just like, how can I compress my time? And if I were to just take another route, which meant like, you know, go for a job, take an employment, or in fact uh, enrolled into George Brown College for a post graduation certificate program. I'm a computer engineer from my background, and I dropped out after one day because
After one day.
yeah, I just got the T-shirt from there and I just dropped out.
You're like, good enough. T-shirts more than enough. Time to
Yeah,
move
yeah.
on.
Yes, absolutely. So what happens is like when I'm wearing that t-shirt, I'm going out in the like out on the streets. People ask me, "Oh, which badge?" I'm saying, "No badge, just one day."
That's hilarious. So
Yeah.
then talk about then, because it sounded like you came to the country and you were probably exploring all your opportunities, like what there was and where to go, which is like, even I feel like what happens in real estate. But let's say for you, so you were like, okay, I'm in a new country. I need to figure out like what I'm going to do in this country. So what was your pivotal moment that made you realize that you need to start your business in marketing and get into real estate specifically?
Yeah. So, marketing was something which I was already doing even back in India. And so I was consulting with digital marketing companies out there also, and doing the brand marketing stuff out there for India national level projects also. So this is something that I was already doing there. But when I made this decision, when my wife and I, we made this decision that we are going to be to Canada, uh, there wasn't really much of a strategy, to be honest. Like, because we knew that we wanted to come here, but we didn't know how exactly, what route are we going to take. Just to be sure, just to be, what we do is that we want to get secured by something. So, which is why I enrolled into that college. But when I came here, then I saw, enormous amount of opportunity what the real estate provides. And then I started reading a lot about real estate, and most of the stuff that we read about was from, of course, from the US, like from Brandon, what's his name? Uh,
When are
yes,
you talking about the US?
yes. So I read a lot of books from him, Rich Dad Poor Dad, understood like how the mechanics of real estate works here. And yeah, then I think then that was the time when I started going to the events, and I realized that this is the industry that I want to be in. But for me, like, because I've been an entrepreneur all my life, and I was like thinking, how can I amalgamate my skill set into the things that I want to do, which can help me provide that kind of a freedom and have that kind of a lifestyle which I'm looking forward for. So that's how I came up with marketing. Like, how can I do the marketing business that I already do and put it into the real estate and make a win-win for the people who are already there. And also, it helps me also grow in my portfolio as well at the same time.
That's amazing that you were able to do that. So what do you think then were the skills that you had that kind of helped you to push you into this entrepreneurship path? Because I feel like that's very hard for a lot of people to get into it. So what do you feel like were the skills that you had that helped you get into it?
I think, Diana, the only skill that I had or I have is that uh, take a decision first and figure it out later. That has just helped me to get into the rooms which I really wanted to be in. So it's always like, if I've decided that I have to go there, I'll start, I'll not take any other chance to prepare myself to go there actually. I'll just simply walk. And if there are any chances of obstacles, failures, and whatnot, a lot of times what happens is people don't take any chances because there are more chances of being failed. And I failed quite a lot of times in my life. And for me, it's like, okay, it's another, it's another, stone, or it's another story. It's another chapter in my story. So that's how I take it. And for me, it's always like, how can I make my story more interesting? How can I make it like, uh, not uh, deliberately that I would want to fail, but like if there are, but that will only happen if I'll take risks. And that's how I just got myself into taking more risks in life. And that's how, I mean, just like talking about debt, a lot of people don't even talk about debt. It's a very hush hush thing. And maybe in the families, like, even if you talk about debt, and it's like, oh, why do you want to get into debt? And that was the first thing that I ever did to coming after coming into this country. I took debt. And just imagine the kind of it was a good debt because it got me open to that kind of environment, those kind of people just like yourself. And today we are having this conversation.
Hmm. Oh my God, you like we're gonna have to go cover all the things because you've gone through a lot of good points. I just want to go over them. So One, basically, you're saying that you are an action taker, which is it is so important because a lot of people, like even me, I'm more of like those like get stuck in analysis paralysis and so, but taking the action is something also even I learned in myself. It's just like, just do it and figure it out along the way, like just figure it out. And I mean, again, for me, it was probably a much slower process because I still had to do like a certain level of research for me to feel comfortable enough to push. But that's great that you were able to you're in the other way around, right? Just go and figure out on the along the way. Oh my God, I can't speak. So I think that's an awesome point that you said. And then also about failure. I think everyone always is very scared of failure, like sees failure as a huge problem, like a very negative thing. And I think the only time that it becomes negative is if you're not willing to learn from your mistakes, because there's no one in the world that is perfect. Even when you think like a baby, right? How many failures does a baby do to start sitting, to start walking, to start crawling, to do anything? Like there's always failures, but what's happening? You're learning, you're figuring out, strategizing, and just be like, okay, this clearly didn't work. Now, what is the next step? So these are like amazing things that I think you've pointed out that is very, very important um, to definitely address because there are lots of people that are like, oh my God, I never want to fail. And I'm just like, that's not good.
That's not good, obviously. I don't know how many times in a day that I fail. I mean, there's so many things that we have a check box to check it and say that we did it, and a lot of things that we don't do in a day. But the thing is, either you're going to track the failures or you're going to just track the wins, just so that you're grateful for the failures which got you those wins.
Exactly.
Right. So it just gets you, I think, the kind of maturity, the kind of experience that you have right now. I think it wouldn't have been possible if you not failed. It's as simple as possible. It just adds a stack of experience into your life.
Exactly. And I think which is something that you have a lot is like being positive, right? Because if you only focus on the failures, which that's another thing, a lot of people really put a lot more emphasis on the failures than their successes. And like you said, you're putting more emphasis on those successes and acknowledging that these failures took you where you are now, right? So I think it's also having that positive mentality is so important, like you're saying, because your focus is more like, wow, look at where I am now. Like I've done these failures, but I learned from it, and this is where I am right now.
To be honest, like my success is as small as or as big as you could say that even waking up in the morning and say, I'm so grateful to see this day today. That's my success. Because
Mhm.
not many people are able to do that also, just being grateful. So like what my wife and I we've started doing recently, it's been almost a couple of months now. We started journaling. It's like a grateful, what are you grateful about? So every
Mhm.
morning when I wake up, I have to write 5 things about what I'm grateful about, and that just gets you thinking that life itself, I mean, if it is so much of mess around you, there's still beautiful things that you can take it out and learn from them and say grateful for those things that has happened to you. And very small things, but very important things. And it has to be different every day.
Yeah, great point. Also, it's so true because a lot of us expect huge wins, like something that is substantial. And again, you put this on a pedestal so high that it makes it hard for you to feel like you're achieving because a big goal means it's going to take time. But if you're realizing the little successes that are getting to you to your big goal, then you really start also getting that feeling of like, wow, I am achieving things and I'm like this much closer to
Yeah.
my actual bigger goals. So that's also a great thing that you're pointing out because it's funny when you talk to people actually because I have one of my mentees. We actually specifically talk about this, and she was like, I don't I don't have like anything to be grateful for today. I'm like, what do you mean?
Mhm.
And because she's thinking at a big scale, and then just like, are you happy that you got up on time? That you did your exercises because you missed yesterday's? Like that, you made it to work on time. Like there's so many little things that you start realizing, and like exactly what you said, like as you start going through the days, you're like, oh my God, for example, like I actually worked out for 5 days in a row. I can't believe I did that. It's like to a person that may be such a small success, but it's so amazing because you're starting to build on your consistency.
Yeah. Yeah.
So talking about that actually, because you did 75 hard, right?
No, I never did 75 hard.
Oh my God. But you're like hardcore into working out, though.
Yeah, so
Like
I
I feel like
was
you probably should have done 75 hard.
yeah, so like I was talking about 75 hard to somebody else the other day also, that there had been times when I was like so much into fitness that I used to go twice in a day, working out and everything, and drink 3 gallons of water in a day.
Oh
Three.
wow.
Yeah, and like six-pack abs, all of that stuff. So I've seen that kind of 75 hard, and that was like 365 hard for me at that moment because I had to be in that kind of regime. But what I was really missing was the personal development at that moment because there was no resource where I could actually, or not sometimes that you're not surrounded with the right kind of people who can actually guide you because they never knew about it, not for their fault also, but
Mhm.
it's just that you have to put yourself in the right room to understand like what are the real important factors which can get you to the place that you want. It cannot be just fitness, it cannot be just one aspect, there has to be a holistical aspect, which is why
Mhm.
mind body spirit comes into the play, and which is why personal, then only the person thinks about growing and have that kind of a consciousness, make a conscious effort about developing personally and growing further.
Mhm.
And
So with that, because you've done maybe then your version of 75 hard because, like that, it is, personal development, working on your fitness, your health. And I know these things are all very important to you. So how do you think they've impacted, do you think that it's given you that the impact for your business and for the path that you're in right now? Like, how do you feel it's changed you?
absolutely, I would say like I'll start with fitness. Fitness has got me discipline. If I were not going to the gym and not caring about my diet and my workout, I wouldn't have that discipline in my life, and it wouldn't have reflected in the other areas of my life also. So for me, discipline is not just working out. My discipline is like for anything and everything that I do in my during the day. So even if it is about if I have made a decision about creating a post for every day on Instagram, I'll have to do it no matter whatever my intention is. If my intention says no, but my decision has already made, so I have to respect that decision to do that. Similarly, like being grateful is like spirit, like you have to do something for your mind for it to channelize and bring a positive and experiential journey so that you can mature. And for that you have to read books. I have to read book 10 pages a day or something like that that I read, or if I'm listening to audible when I'm working out. So all such things definitely have impacted me a lot. And I would say mostly since the time when I've moved here, because I feel that I'm more focused into things that I want to do and the direction that I want to go. So I feel that, and that wouldn't have been possible, to be honest, if I were not in a right room and talking to the right kind of people. Because
100%.
that was a missing element into my life before that.
Mhm. Yeah, and you start really, I guess, understanding that saying that you're the average of the five people that you spend the most time with. Like, I think until you level up and put yourself around other people that are the kind of people that you want to be, you don't realize that how it actually does impacts you quite a bit.
Yeah. And also one thing is so much important for people to realize that a lot of people, lot of times what we get ourselves into that, I need this, I need that, I need that. But in order to do that, you have to give something up. You have to, if you want to get mentored by somebody, you would simply say, I want to get mentored by you. But what are you giving up in that regards? How are you proving your worth, and what the other person is getting, what are you giving the other person? So always think about in a way that what can you give first, instead of asking for what I want to get into my life. If you have that kind of mindset that I want to give something selflessly to somebody, the things will happen automatically. It will happen automatically. Karma is true. I believe in that. And
Mm-hmm.
your and my everybody's, uh, we have to do something in making our lives and people around our lives better, and we are responsible for that.
100%. And I think it's also just something that's innate in us that we naturally do like to help other people. It's just maybe obstacles, things that are the way, or maybe we feel like, because I do also know there's some people that they don't feel like they have anything to offer sometimes. And again, it's things that they don't realize because maybe like that, like, okay, I want mentorship. I don't know anything. What is that person gonna, what can I give that person? But there's so much stuff that you can do depending on what you know about them. Like maybe giving your time for work for them, maybe just having the money, paying them for their service. Like being creative is also a very important part.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'll give you an example for that. Like recently, what happened was that so there's a person who I want to get mentored from because I know the kind of level that he is in. And, but for me, if I come across and saying that, hey, this is what I want, but the other person is going to say, oh, why the hell should I care about it? I mean, it's not my life. You figure it out. So I took an approach in thinking about how can I help him to be better at the things that he's doing. So when I started thinking that, I just started to review because I'm into social media. Then I try to have an overview and an understanding what value can I create for him so that he gets better, at the thing that he's doing. So I created reels, 5, 7 reels for him, and today he's working with me. And
that's
that's just because I thought of him first before asking that this is what I want for myself. And
that's
just yesterday, we were on a Zoom call, and that was my biggest highlight of the day.
that's
I,
amazing. Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
And it is very true, that if you think of the other person first, it makes a huge difference completely. Exactly what you're saying. It is very, very true that if you're gonna start with providing the value, then it's so different, right? Because they're gonna naturally want like, okay, this like this person's providing me value, how can I provide him value?
Yeah.
Right?
So
And so
basically, it's all about what is the problem that you're trying to solve. That is the real innate question, even if what you do it in your businesses, also what we do in our lives. What is it that your problem? What is it that you are providing as a solution for somebody else's problem? And if you just keep on implementing this statement in anything and whatever you do, you will be the giver and you will be the winner out of that.
yeah, 100%. I wanted to also go back to another point that you said about being the dumbest person in the room. I think that's also a very, very great point, um, because when you're the dumbest person in the room, you're thinking in a place, one, you're humbling yourself because I think a lot of people will have the issue of like they don't like to be the dumbest person because maybe like something inside you like the ego starts kind of wanting to come out, right? And so it's really good that to humble yourself and be okay with being the dumbest person in the world, be in the world, the dumbest person in the room.
Imagine in the world.
No, that would be too much, right?
Right.
But being the dumbest person in the room, because from there you're opening up your mind to learning so much, right? Because that is very true. When you're an expert in something, you won't really listen to people because you're like, I know this, I know what it is. But when you come with the mind of opening your mind and absorbing what other people are doing, you could know, for example, even like let's say marketing for you, right? Like you've done marketing, you do social what is it, social brand recognition or something,
Brand market, personal
brand
brand
marketing,
marketing.
yes, right? And you know so much, but if you're going in the room and come like open-minded, and you may learn techniques that you don't use yourself, and realize like, oh wow, this is, especially with the way the world is, how we're evolving so quick that you like whatever you do, I feel like you can never be an expert in because things are always evolving, and being the dumbest person in the room is so important because you humble yourself and you really open your mind to listening to others, which is very, very important. What are
Ab-
your thoughts?
Absolutely. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, even if I'm in that room, and even the reason why I want to level up is, which is why I want to have those coach who are smarter than me, of course. And that is why we go into those rooms. Imagine you going to the room and you are the only one who's talking. I mean, what value will you get out of that room? It's maybe you're providing a lot of value to other people, but you are in a wrong room. You know it because you are not learning anything from there. So that's why, and I would also say a lot of people, there is one notion about that I don't want to do things for free. I don't want to, because this is my positioning, this is my ground. I started my work doing for free for some people. I simply went on to people, you know what, let me help you out with this. And that's how I started working. That's how I
Mhm.
started growing my business. Otherwise, that's how I try to open the doors, because you have to make somebody, if you want something, you have to give something. And generously give that something to other person so that it is appreciated. There has to be an emotional labor into things that you're doing. It cannot be just a factory work. If you're just stamping things out of the factory, if this is what you want to do, go ahead and do that. But you have to put an emotional labor into things that you do.
100%. That's so true. So, with your journey that you've been going through, what are the skills that you realize that you didn't have and that you need to have to continually to level up and continue, improving yourself?
Three, I would like to call those the three things that I think about myself is, and I'm always fascinated by these three values that even I have as a person, are three C's: having courage, creativity, and connections. So this is what I really think, that I'm always leveling up for all these three things. Connection is having a human connection between like you and me. Like I believe a lot in making that those kind of relationships, making that fellowship. And I believe you and I, all of us, if we are working together, we can make extraordinary things together. It's just a matter of collaborations. Okay. Then comes the creativity. I know that my heart lies into creating things. I want to create more things, more in terms of like maybe that be social media, maybe that be branding or whatever. Like pitching the same idea in a certain format that it is understood by you. So solving your problem in a certain way that I am able to position some kind of an idea in your mind. So that is a creativity. And having courage is like, I think there's a brave one between all of us. It just, we need to just find it out somewhere. Sometimes I might be brave at something, but I could be very not so brave into doing something else. It's just that we have to find that courage to actually, because you have to give yourself a self talk and find that brave one inside all the time and say that you did that, you could do that too. So
Mhm.
these are the three things which I always want to aspire learning from and growing and learn and mature and get that kind of an experience around.
It's amazing. Do you have any specific stories that made you realize that this is something that became very important to you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like whatever I told about making connections. So doing stuff for free for somebody without any ulterior motive. Just because with a faith of having that, I want to see that person successful. And what can I do in my power to help him or her out in that? And similarly, that idea also came out with like the coaching that I'm into right now, for some where I'm trying to get to that level of understanding and learning things. But my intention, to be honest, wasn't really thinking, because if I just put myself into the box that this is the result that I'm looking for, then I wouldn't have been so much creative in bringing those things out, making that connection with that person. But what I put myself is that, you know what, out of my month, 1 month, I'm going to create these 5 things for him every single day, every single month. That is it. And that decision I've made for myself, so that I'm trying to add some kind of a value into his life and the people that he cares about. So that was the connection part which came into one of the most recent. Like I said, like even the businesses that I've closed initially, they were all free. I mean, I just came out and said, how can I help you with? Having more communication. Like you and I, if we are talking today, we are having this conversation. And once there is a conversation, there is a connection. And once there is a connection, there is an opportunity to help each other out. So I
Mm-hmm.
think everything is related with each other.
100%. That's amazing. That's really good to hear. And so, do you have any specific, like for the new learning new skills, like a pivoting point that, for a story that made you realize, like, let's say working for free? Like, was there something like that made you want, like, that made you think about it, to want to, let's say, work for free?
It's just like, you have to figure out what are your uh, skill sets. You have to figure out like what are you good at. You don't have to be brilliant at it, but you have to good at it. You have to keep on learning and upgrading your skill set. Even if I'm taking, if there had been times I've taken a project and I'm learning at the same time about the same project. I've enrolled myself into learning about those projects. So it's so two things are working in this kind of a scenario. One is saying yes and figuring it out later, and also at the same time leveling up yourself so that you're able to figure that out. So
Mm-hmm.
these are the things that I have already inculcated and still do it. Like even tomorrow, I have another skill set upgrade class that I have enrolled into that I have to keep on growing, and I know that if I somehow have if I have an eye regarding brand story, brand marketing, storytelling, and all that stuff, I have to upgrade that skill set. It's not like I have known for it, or whatever you know or somebody else knows me for what I know. It is not enough. I have to keep on upgrading myself, and that's what I keep on doing. It like one of the very good authors that I listen to is Seth Godin, and I most of my work is very much you know inspired by his teachings as well. If you have
What's
read
the name again? Sorry,
Seth
who?
Seth Godin, Seth Godin.
Um,
So he talks a lot about like who is it for. He talks a lot about permission marketing. He talks about uh, I would recommend his book if you get any chance to read, which is Lynchpin. It's a pretty good book. So what he talks about is
Lynch?
Lynchpin. Lynchpin. I'll
You
just
have to maybe type it because I have no. That sounds like not a normal word.
yeah, Lynchpin. So he talks about putting out the emotional labor. He talks about that the schools have just been made for the factory workers, factory owners, so that they can get the factory workers out. So he talks about a lot of that stuff and also makes you realize that, whatever you're doing in your life, it has to have more meaning. It doesn't have to be just for the sake of it. And it has to create a life for somebody else better in whatever work that you're doing. So I think I'm very much inspired by his work. And one of the high moments for me also was that recently I sent him an email about that how has he inspired me, and I got a response back from him. And that day again, I was so grateful for that day. I mean, I took that screenshot and I was like, I was running all over. It was my fan moment.
That's amazing. So, what would you say when going back to the mentor that you're just getting now? What made you decide, like, what about that person um, made you decide to want to get mentorship from them? Like, is it specifically related to like your marketing, or is it business building or personal development? Like, what is the purpose? Like, what is your hope of mentorship from this person?
A couple of questions, in fact. It's few of the things are regarding the business as well and personal development also. But also, like, majorly what I told him was, I want to ask better questions. Like the kind of questions that I might be asking might be okay for a lot of people, but I want to be asking more simpler questions, but I also should know the answers of those simpler questions. And how do I ask those questions? Things don't have to get really complex. The thing is that it doesn't really have to get complex, but how do you simplify those things is what I'm trying to understand. That's like the psychology behind the things that you do, the we as sapiens and everything. So I want to understand what gets you to do what you are doing, and how to simply break those things down. So asking those questions, psychological questions, business building questions, personal development, everything, but like ask better questions is what basically got me into excited into getting that kind of a mentorship from him.
That's amazing. That's really interesting you say that actually, because I've also been thinking about that. Like psychology, I don't know if this is something that because of personal development, you just start thinking more about the mind, I guess.
Yes.
Because it's really funny that you said that. I find I've become very fascinated actually with just like the way people think, and I didn't think of it in the sense you're saying though, asking the right questions, but definitely like I love kind of like diving into people's minds and
Yeah.
wondering like what makes them tick, like why would you think that way? Because it's maybe clearly different than the way that I think, and it's like now I want to know why you're thinking that way, like what made you think that way?
Yeah, absolutely. And I realize that it happens quite so often with me when I'd never, so like if your opinion is different than mine, I'm not questioning why is it like, or like it has to be similar to mine, but I'm questioning what made you to think that kind of a decision.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that is really fascinating to understand, like how, what goes inside your mind, what kind of a belief system that you have around those questions, or the kind of story that you have been told all your life about those questions, so that it predicated the kind of the way that it came out. I think that is really interesting to understand.
100%. So do you have a specific story that made you that something happened and like that made you want to get more into the psychology of people?
Not nothing in particular, but it's just like you said, like it's a journey, right? Like when you get into personal development, when you start understanding, and also in my own field, branding, it's more about psychology. It's more
Yeah.
about understanding what is your human behavior and how do you respond to those kind of things which are presented to you, in what story form or possible. So this is what I've realized, that you can hack your way into people's lives, but you cannot put an impression for a longer term. You can hack your impression like in a way that maybe you're looking at an ad about, hey, we buy houses. Yes, you do buy houses, but you are spamming me. Or maybe something, maybe you had a very creative art to place it out there, which got me intrigued, but it wasn't good enough. The product wasn't good enough that I would buy into you. So there are two sides of it. One is getting in an attention and retaining that attention. So what can help you retain that attention is where the storytelling comes into the picture. And that comes with not one touch point. It has to be multiple touch points. So understanding that psychology itself, I think it's really huge. And I really get fascinated when I think about it. Like how easy is it for us to even have, without even selling something, we sell some stuff. Like you and I, if we go out and buy a car, we don't really buy a car into the features and the facts that we buy into. We buy into out of the dreams we feel about it, the car, that the car is going to make us feel, the kids are going to feel about it, our family is going to, and the way that you are going to, your desires are going to get, approved, or you fulfilled once you drive that car. So
Hmm.
facts and figures don't really matter. And I see that all the time getting out of the window, because I've worked in the sales background for car dealership as well. So I know that people really don't care like whatever interest rate, and they need that car, they want it. It's a desire. It's not more of a facts and figure. I mean, they would come out to you and say, hey, so this is the payment terms and this is what this has better features. And but then again, I break down into saying like why do you really want to buy this car? Asking those questions will just get them to reveal the emotional side of the things, why they're really buying that car. And I think if we start touching on the emotional side, you would never have to touch on the selling part. The selling will happen automatically, and this is what I love about branding.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I actually read something about that too. Like a very simple example is like something like that. Like, you don't buy the lock, like you don't buy the lock because you want like a good lock. You want it because you want to feel the security that you know that your house is secure. And yeah, it's very interesting how I was also reading stuff about that, how it's more about the emotional feeling or what it gives to you. Like having a babysitter is not to take care of the kids, it's for you to have your freedoms to enjoy your evening, and it's just kind of like something that I never thought of it in that way, but you do feel it, right?
Yeah.
Like you are like, I would like to, relax and what
Yeah.
will make you relax, right?
Right. It's the stories that you tell yourself, right? It's the story that you tell yourself, or maybe sometimes we try to prove that story with a fact, with a logic.
Hmm.
And that is
Hmm.
never an answer. The answer is always the emotional side of it, because you wanted to have fun. You wanted to go out when the baby is out in the house with the babysitter. So I think that is really interesting how emotions will always overpower the logic. And sooner or later, if people understand that fact, and I think it's where the real stuff starts happening then.
Yeah. And like that, like I don't know if you've read about this part, but like how our decisions, which I think you have from what you're saying, that our decisions are made on our emotional side.
Yeah.
And it's true, like the emotional side is what like rules us. And and then it's actually the logical side, like we go into the logical side to make it seem like no, this
Oh,
isn't an
yes.
emotional choice. This is
Yeah.
like pure logic. And it really it's like no, because it's very interesting. Like there's a study that they've done where um, there's people that can't make decisions, and it's like they've had damage in their emotional part. I can't remember what it's called, but the emotional part in their brain.
Mhm.
Have you ever read about that? I found that super interesting.
Uh,
No,
is it a book, or was it a?
it was a part in a book. I can't remember which book that it was in. I've read so many books. They're like all meshed all into
So
one now.
what's happening with you? What are you reading nowadays?
Right now, which book am I into right now? I'm actually really into what is it called? Millionaire Mindset, that one.
Oh, Millionaire Mindset. Okay.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying that one. Actually, no, but that's not from there. But there's some other good points in there that Millionaire Mindset. Have you read that one?
No, I haven't read that. I've read
You
The
should.
Millionaire Success Habits. It's
Mm.
by Dean
You
Gray.
should look it up. It's really interesting. Like I find it funny, for example, it's called Millionaire Mindset. And I feel like, let's say stereotypical people will think like, oh, it's just about making money.
No.
But yeah, it's more about abundance and wealth and how to bring that. And it's something, again, like all about the mind psychology,
Okay.
and it's very interesting. So if you want to read a book, read it. I like that one too. I'm actually on repeat. I'm probably gonna do a
Oh,
two more repeats on it, and then I'll
oh
go to
wow.
my next week.
Oh, that's amazing. I was also watching something about so like even in the last couple of days, I've just got very intrigued in understanding like what goes in a billionaire's mind when how do they perform better while whatever work that they're doing in a like everybody. So I think about it like you and I, everyone has 24 hours. Everyone has 24 hours in a day, and how do we structure those 24 hours is going to make our future ahead of us. And
Hmm.
how billionaires or millionaires are doing differently, and what we can learn from that. So
100%.
so I think there's huge opportunity for us to see from the people what who are already established into these things and learn from them, and I think it's amazing. It's super cool.
Hmm. And actually, I want to share something that I had like a revelation. I'm curious if you had, because same thing, we were both in the same mastermind.
uh,
So I thought it was something interesting. Like I remember when like Ben and Matt would talk about specific like points that like it would like I didn't realize at the time it'd go in one ear and out the other ear until you started leveling up and started improving yourself and then start once you were getting at certain levels specifically like I felt like hitting to personal development where I felt like personal development is very very critical and important. Basically why I have this show is to talk about like how important it is. is that I really then actually started understanding some of the things that Ben and Matt were saying, and they were actually starting to make sense. But I felt like when my mind was at a lower mindset, that like, or it like seemed too simple. Like you'd say
Hmm.
things, and I'm just like, that's that's not revealing or something to me in any sense. But it's like as soon as I hit there, I feel like once you hit certain ceilings,
Mhm.
your mind starts like truly understanding things. Did you have something like that with you, where you
Uh,
didn't understand things, like, and then like once you hit a certain ceiling, you were like, oh, this makes sense, or what they were saying was true?
could you give me your example? Like, what was your ceiling point when you thought about it?
Like, for example, personal, like that personal development. Like, I've always been like, for me, I've always understood like taking care of yourself is very important. Actually, even very similar to what you're saying, like exercising is very important. I mean, learning has always been something that I've always liked to do, but I never realized like learning about me
Hmm.
is very important, and learning to improve myself. For some reason, I never thought in that sense. I always thought, like, for example, if I want to start a business, I need to learn about how to start a business,
Hmm.
right? But personal development is like how you're like, fine, you can start that business, but if it becomes successful or not has nothing to do with like the courses you've taken in, learning a business. It really does become about you yourself as a person,
Right.
right? So like, so then it was more I it was more like these kind of things, that like that personal development specifically, that there was things that he would say, and I can't remember exactly what they were,
Hmm.
but he would say certain points that seemed so basic to me
Hmm.
that I just didn't get at the time. And like now it's just kind of, like that, like I can notice that my mind, like the way I think now, is different to other people. Oh,
Hmm.
and specifically why I noticed this was because my sister, she's just like, let's say, a few steps behind me. Like I was pushing on her, personal development, you gotta do it, like read this
Right.
book, read this book, read
Great.
this book. And she was more about she was reading self-help book, is what I would call it,
Okay.
right? And then finally she got into this book that I told, The Slight Edge. I was like,
Hmm.
okay, read this book, because Ben gave us a physical copy, so I gave it to her. I'm like, read it.
Hmm.
And then she read it and she was like mind blown. And then she's like, oh my God, she's like, you need to tell me all these books you're reading because now I get it. It's like she went through her, like, and she wasn't getting it. Like, she was doing more self-help, whereas like
Right.
personal development is different, right? It's not self-help. It's like, I would say, self-improvement, in
Right.
developing yourself, right?
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
I totally resonate with that. Like, even I was not reading many books. So this is the conversation that I had with Ben initially when I met him during the boot camp, and he said that your mindset is already there. That that you what where a lot of people are not there at the moment because of their fears and all of that stuff. But I was just looking for the direction, like what could I inculcate on a daily habit? And that is what the personal development books, I think, really, really helped me to explore that even more further beyond it. So maybe few of the things which I'm doing today, I was already doing it before, but not in a personal development way, but just to be in light of the same direction. But now when I know that this is the real direction that I really want to go into, because a lot of stuff can happen if you just channelize your energy and understand about yourself, about that. And this is what I've even in fact come on to realize, that the people, they might be doing the basic of the businesses who are even at the higher level. It's just the way that they have personally developed themselves is what is perceived by the person who they're talking to, and that is the value that they bring onto the table. So maybe let's talk about a website designer. Maybe there is a company who designs website, but the owner of the company is so much personally developed, is so uh, better in talking and understanding life itself. That changes the whole scenario, and that is where the real conversation starts coming in, because maybe she or he is positioning themselves to in the mindset of a people who understand that kind of a mindset, and that has the value. So not your any, so like I say, if you go to the barber, the if you go to the barber, the tool, the scissor is not, that is the tool, that is not the art. The art is in the hands of the artist who is doing it. And similarly, having a website, having a business, all of that is good, that is fancy, but it is you who is the artist, and it is in your hands. How do you want to, build your business and want to create that kind of an impact in the lives of other people?
That's amazing. Yeah. And very, very true.
Yeah.
100% agree with that statement. So, last question.
Oh
Where
wow.
do you see yourself in, what do you see yourself doing in the next 5 to 10 years?
For me, I think so for me, I've decided on one important factor, that I have to be really, really consistent in whatever things that I'm doing. I see myself being consistent, and in fact increasing on those consistencies, uh, because I think you have to start somewhere. It doesn't matter you're doing every day, but you have to do it some days that you choose to do. But over the period of time, I tend to multiply those things, because I've been already been, by that time I will already been into that kind of a habit to do it. So keeping that consistency, because nobody can beat me on that. If I do that, if I continually show up, nobody can beat that, because a lot of people will, you know digress or stop doing it, or they just don't feel like doing it anymore. That is where I want to see myself going on. Whatever I want to do, whatever goals that I have want to achieve, that doesn't matter. But if I keep on multiplying it and keep on consistently showing up, and that's where I see myself doing it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for so much for coming on the show. It was awesome to have you on. It was fun to hear your personal development story and just to get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, same here, Diana. I think it was, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. And whatever you're doing is great. I think this is what the personal development gets you into, right? Like, you want to change lives, and something that has helped you and you are helping other people. I think this is a very generous act. And I'm really, really proud of you for doing this.
Thank you so much. And same with you. You're doing such amazing things. And even like that, like outside of your marketing, you're doing such amazing things. So it's good. It's awesome to see you grow, and it'll be fun. Maybe we'll do like a prequel, in a year. I can't imagine where we're gonna be, right?
Yeah. And one another thing that I wanted to bring out, maybe a lot of people might not know about that. I also have a podcast which is on mental health. So we talk about, it's by the name of Inside Out. Ali and I, we both do it. And every week we have some amazing guests on the podcast share their story. I mean, I talk about depression. I talk about loneliness. I talk about, suicidal thoughts and all of that stuff. Uh, Not that I've got experience into all of these things, but yes, depression for sure. I've been there when I was a kid, so I understand how it goes around in the minds. And I think we have to keep on talking about these things also. And this is something which changes the whole scenario and whole, life of a person, and from a very short, very small age. So if we start addressing these things right now and have an open conversation about it, I think it will just create a better world. So I think,
100%. That's
yeah,
awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that.
yeah.
And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you for having me. You
Yeah,
are great.
thank you everyone for joining. And we'll see everyone in the next episode. Bye everyone. Bye Sahas.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Diana. Take care.